Good morning, and welcome to Tip Off with snowy skies behind me. How about that for June 18th? I'm David Locke. Lots to talk about, answer a lot of your questions on a huge content day on Locked on Jazz. Ba, 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 ba. Good morning. I know the glare behind me is not great, but I got to keep it up, right? I mean, that's snow out there. I think you can tell. Tree over here covered with snow. The railings got just it had an inch yesterday. It seems to have subsided a little bit. So good morning. I'm David Locke. Huge content day for you today. So I don't want to take this too long. The Noah Vonleh draft breakdown will be up. Yesterday, the Marcus Smart video went up. I saw some of you got to that. So the Vonleh will be up today and launching in the morning sometime part one of the hour long, so it'll be 30 minutes, Chad Ford podcast. I had an hour with Chad last night. It was awesome. We probably could have gone two, but at some point I realized, he's got things to do. So I can't be thankful enough to Chad. A bunch of you have already sent out a at Chad Ford Insider a thank you. I can't tell you how much that matters. It's just a big deal. So thank you very much. And if you get a chance to do it, appreciate it. At Chad Ford Insider, if you can drop him a thank you, that makes a big difference. Chad doesn't do a lot of interviews this time of year. He's so incredibly busy, and for him to give us an hour, there's a chance, by the way, I don't know if it'll happen, but he just, after we were done, he just said, it's so great to talk to, someone who's into it, knows what's going on, rather than kind of the interview with someone who's never heard of these players. Maybe if we're bored, we'll do it again. Like, just we'll record a conversation talking up to the draft. So I don't know if that'll happen. I doubt it, but it'd be incredible. And if you guys send those thank yous, there's a better chance of it. So thank you very much. I really appreciate you guys doing that. Kevin Pelton and I will talk. We'll have that for you next week. I'm trying to get a hold of Jonathan Giovoni. I really like Nate Duncan on Basketball Insiders and like his basketball background, and he and I are not agreeing right now on the draft, so there's a chance. If I get my goal would be that every day between now and Wednesday or Thursday next week, there'll be some content for you as a podcast other than tip-off. So today, Chad Ford Part 1. Thursday, Chad Ford Part 2. Maybe Nate Duncan or Jonathan Giovoni Friday. Pelton Monday or Tuesday. And then I'll be in New York on Tuesday. Wednesday, you'll get all the interviews with the actual players. And Thursday we'll have constant updates throughout the day. So huge coverage between now and then. Really appreciate it. Alan in the bottom left, if you could please mute your mic, that would be good. You're the one who's not muted. All right, let's roll through. There's a ton of questions. I think the best thing to do today is to get to those questions, but there is some news. I wanted to give a tip of the hat to one of the really good guys who I enjoyed time with. Sidney Lowe got hired in Minnesota, back where he's been numerous times before as an assistant coach under Flip Saunders. That was official yesterday. I've communicated with Sid, and so we knew that, but I just wanted to he's just a great man. Coaching news. It's beginning to piece together. I thought this would be the week. So it leaked out of Toledo yesterday that Mike Wells, who used to be a video coordinator in Houston, he worked in San Antonio, is coming to work for the Jazz. Tony Jones also broke that no Darvin Ham, and then I'm hearing no Melvin Hunt out of Denver, which were two names that I anticipated. The no Darvin Ham surprises me. He and Quinn are tight. My only guess on that is that Ham gets promoted to the number one spot where Quinn was in Atlanta, and so he doesn't leave. And then that probably means that Brad Jones, nicely for us, is back in the fold with the Jazz. I would assume. I haven't talked to Brad, so I'll have to check on that. But that, it sounds like that'd be great. And then if Alex Jensen, Mike Wells may be a player development coach with Johnny Bryant, then Alex Jensen gets bumped if no Darvin Ham's coming because no Darvin works big men too. Alex Jensen, you suddenly have three of your four coaches, your head coach and have been head coaches and been D-League head coaches with a young team. That's a pretty neat little staff that is being put together there. So I like what we're seeing in that regard. Julius Randle is in town today. I'll go down to that workout before. Supposedly, I'm playing in a Larry H. Miller Classic golf tournament today. Um, okay, I'm not a professional athlete. The way this tournament is structured might be the most pressure-packed thing I've ever had to do. So it's a fundraiser for Larry H. Miller Charities. I'm going to be sitting on a par three that's 100, depending what tees we're playing, about 170 yards over water. I'm not that good, guys. And people will take their shots, and then if they're not in a very good situation, they will actually buy a shot by donating money to Larry H. Miller Charities for me to go. Now I have to perform. People are paying money for my performance. I'm a little concerned about this. Yeah, I'll admit it. I'm nervous. All right. Let's get to some of the draft news that is out there. I watched Noah Vonleh all day yesterday with the snow going on. I didn't get to ride or play golf or do any of my usual summer stuff. I watched 5 of his games. The video should be up here shortly. It's at 80% uploading as we speak. I just checked. I like him. I like him a lot. And I like all these kids. This draft is great. They all play hard. Every back report I'm getting on the kids is that they're really good kids. Vonleh is 6'10", 240 at 18 years old, and he's very interesting to me. He is not all the way there. There's some concerns, like if I were to be negative to start the shoot, I don't think he's a particularly quick jumper, though I've seen it at times, or a quick reactor. I didn't see rim protection. I saw him late on help. A lot of the time, that could be coaching that improves that, though I really like what Tom Crean did to him. His on-floor defense at 6'10", 240, his ability to move his feet is elite. I've never seen it. Frankly, I'm not sure I've seen it since the mailman. I'm trying to think of any. Chris Bosh would be the closest, but he's so much bigger than Bosch at 6'10", 240. Now, he's not going to get quicker as he gets older. I think you can assume with these big guys that probably will happen. His shot looks very comfortable. I don't know how he's shooting it at workouts. I'd have to check that and see whether you really believe that's going to be a shot that parlays to the NBA. It's a very simple set shot. Maybe it's not going to go to 22 feet, but he looks very comfortable at 19 feet right now. You almost can see a LaMarcus Aldridge aspect to that. I mean, you're talking about Chris Bosh and LaMarcus Aldridge for a guy who's going to be the 5th pick of the draft. Sure, there's the chance that he doesn't, it doesn't all come together, but he runs the floor beautifully, and he's got the ability at 22 feet offensively, crossover through the wickets, put on the floor at 6'10", 240. Well, now all of a sudden, in the college game, you can't get the room. It's the same thing I was worried about when I was watching Jabari that I wasn't getting is, in the pro game, I want to see you catch at the elbow and then swing through to a quick move and go. Well, I think he's going to be able to do that and bigger and stronger. There were times, frankly, watching Vonleh that I began to wonder if I liked him more than Jabari. Not sure, but there are times when I thought that. I didn't see enough passing, so that would be a concern, but, he just didn't get a lot of chance on that. So we'll see. Dante Exum, there's a nice piece in the Boston Globe today on Exum. Some quotes out of that from a Western Conference executive. He's a little bit of a wild card. He definitely looked great last year at the Hoop Summit and played well in international events. He's going to be a really good player, but I don't have the familiarity with him as a comfort level on what he can do as compared to some of the other guys. Another quote, he's long, athletic, he knows how to play. I think his biggest thing is he's getting stronger in shooting. I think he's athletic, but it's interesting because he covered Wiggins a couple of times at the Hoop Summit event, and he did okay. And it's like, okay, this guy can cover Wiggins. But then there are plays, and it's like as athletic as Exum is, he's not an elite athlete. Exum can do this to people. Wiggins can do this to people, but there was a large difference between the two of them when it came to the level of athleticism. The Vonleh thing will be posted. I'll be really curious to have your thoughts, and Chad and I will get into it a little bit as well. Kyle Anderson, second workout in Atlanta. Atlanta is sitting at 15. All right, let me address one thing it's so unlikely that I kind of decided I wasn't going to talk about it. And it's the idea of moving up in the draft, but I've suddenly come to a realization that it's all that we're going to talk about for the next week, whether I would like to try to avoid it or not. It really may be cost prohibitive. I think there's an argument with the cost of what it is and how good Vonleh or Exum or Gordon might be that it's actually not worth it. I think there's some angle you might want to think about in that regard. You better really be sure that you believe Wiggins uh, or Parker, if that's who you're after it too, is going to be an enormous star and is really one of the, as I talk about the ski lift analogy, is one of your towers that's going to carry your franchise. You better be certain that it's more so he than a Noah Vonleh or an Aaron Gordon or someone like that, and you might be right. The one area where the Jazz might be able to move up and get something done is if they were to help Milwaukee fix their financial situation a little bit. So OJ Mayo is owned $8 million next year and $8 million the year after, and Zaza Pachulia is owned $5 million next year and $5 million the year after that, and Carlos Delfino is at $3 million and $3 million. If somehow the Jazz were willing to absorb somewhere in the range of that, what is that, 13 to 16 million dollars worth of contracts, and allow Milwaukee to get their books down. Obviously, they'd have to take some contracts back from the Jazz, but maybe they would, a lot of them, it could be whatever player the Jazz are giving them, plus a lot of the Jazz non-guaranteed contracts. That might be, something that becomes reasonable to Milwaukee. That might be the way that the Jazz can get it done. Chad will propose something as well you can chew on in the podcast. But the Jazz have, it doesn't seem like a lot, but I think John Lucas at 1.6 is non-guaranteed next year. Deontay Garrett at 1 is non-guaranteed next year. Malcolm Thomas at 1 is non-guaranteed next year. Ian Clark at a little under 1 is non-guaranteed next year. Eric Murphy is non-guaranteed next year. You could trade all of those guys plus whatever piece you're giving them, plus whatever draft pick you're giving them, and find yourself suddenly be giving Milwaukee something. That's the only scenario. It seems incredibly unlikely. I was at the point where I just wasn't going to talk about it because I think it's the cost prohibitive a little bit to even having that time. All right, let me run through. There were a ton of questions yesterday on the board. I see a lot of you are putting questions in the chat room. I'll try to get to those. The first ones I'll always get to is the ones that are the questions up here. So let me run through today's questions that are up, then I'll try to get to yesterday's, and then if there's some in the chat room, not in the chat room, but on the event page, I'll try to do it. There's a question and answer that allows you questions to get up here on the right that really are the best. Let's go to Ryan Dangerfield. Accurate comparison for Vonleh, LaMarcus Aldridge, and Chris Bosh. Do you have any comparisons from either past or present? Do you have any comparisons for Smart? I get nervous. I don't see the LaMarcus Aldridge. I really don't. He can shoot it a little bit, and I can see where they talk about Bosh, but I don't see that either. He's 6'10", 240. This is maybe the one thing that has me a little bit nervous on Vonleh is both LaMarcus Aldridge and Chris Bosh are that wiry, long athlete. Vonleh at 18, at 6'10", and 240 is not going to become that wiry athlete. So frankly, if he actually stays as athletic at that size, then he's incredible. It's hard to find guys that are 6'10", 240 that are that athletic. Yes, I know we had one, but he's one of the only, and that's kind of why I'm saying that. And I'm not going to install his name on draft day toward him being a Hall of Famer. But frankly, LaMarcus Aldridge and Chris Bosh are Hall of Famers too. So some of this is a little hard. You get a little, try not to get too carried away right before the draft. And right now, I love all these guys. I really do. I really think this is a special, special draft. I think that Marcus Smart is Tyreke Evans. And you have to decide what you think of that. I think that Tyreke Evans player is becoming more valuable in the NBA. He's a shrinky-dink version of Tyreke Evans. He was a rookie of the year. He scored an awful lot. He's kind of not been used particularly well. The problem is he's not a shooter. And so you've got to figure out how are you going to use a non-shooter. Well, if the ball's in his hands, it's not as big a deal, is the way that works. But otherwise, you've got to figure out how you're using. If you're going to have the ball in somebody else's hands, then Marcus Smart's lack of shooting can be an issue. But Tyreke Evans, I still think could help you win. And I think Marcus Smart can too. He's a better defensive player. Noah Vonleh, I don't have that. I'm trying to find it, but everyone we're talking about is 20 and 10. That's a huge expectation. But the fact we're talking about it tells you a little bit about where his skill set is. And when the video goes up, you can watch it and see what you think. Is it better for the Jazz to extend Cantor now or wait until he's a restricted free agent? If we wait, they get a year to watch him develop, but the cap may rise, or a team lacking size could overpay him. It's the right thing to do with Cantor is to pay him if they're realistic. Now, his agent, this is his one client, and anytime you have this going on, it didn't happen this way with Favors, but anytime you have kind of an agent without a lot of other clients, it's as important a deal for the agent to get future clients as it is for Cantor. I like Ennis's agent. I want to point that out. I'm not criticizing him. That's just the reality of business. So he's going to be very unsure and want to make sure he's not going to get Ennis underpaid. The reason why it makes a lot of sense to extend Ennis is because his cap hold is already set, and it's already really high because he was the third pick of the draft. This is similar to Favors. So Ennis is making $6.86 million next year. His cap hold for 2015-16 is or his number is 7.8. So his cap hold's already at like 10 or 11. So if you can get a similar deal done with Cantor that you are with Favors, you don't negatively impact his cap situation. Hayward's the opposite. Hayward is at 4.6 coming into this year, so his cap hold is like $6 million. If you had paid him 11 or 12, you're taking $6 million of your cap space that's available to make a deal. That's why the Favors deal was really able to get done, and the Cantor deal was not able to get done is because of that. So yes, there's a real advantage to extending, or you can extend Cantor at this point without hurting your cap situation, and that I think matters. Since the question was asked by the title, whoever that, I guess, is one of Vonleh's comparisons Kevin Love. That's interesting. Same body size, not that kind of rebounder, better athlete, not that kind of shooter, and not that elite passer. I mean, Kevin Love is greatness as his passer. Body size is similar. Body size is a good one. He moves better than Love. He defends on the floor incredibly well for that size. I mean, that's really an exciting thing, and he's able to put the ball on the floor. Body size. So he's okay. We're talking about Hall of Famers. I got it. So this is all an exaggeration, but Hall of Famers are guys that we can reference and understand. We're talking about Chris Bosh's game in Kevin Love's body. Probably not as good a passer. That worries me. From Dace Jackson. If we draft Vonleh, what do you think happens with Cantor? If we draft Vonleh, it would be I'm sure I'll try to sell that it can be fine. I'll work together. No way it all lasts together, right? Like, there's just no way. So at some point, somebody moves. If we draft Vonleh, I don't know. I think there's it doesn't all have to happen immediately, right? Like, my instinct a little bit is to say, well, if we draft Vonleh, then you take Cantor in 23 and you do this. But I'm not sure that it has to be that way. I'm not sure that it all has to happen just like that. I it could be what happens to Favors, frankly. I don't know. But for the beginning part, Vonleh's 18 years old, so for the first year, you work them all together, right? And it's probably a nicer way for Vonleh to enter, not having to have some of the same things where he's matched up against LaMarcus Aldridge, Chris Bosh, and Kevin Love every time. I mean, that power forward run, is pretty incredible. You can go with a very easy sequence of Blake Griffin, suddenly play Blake Griffin, David Lee, LaMarcus Aldridge, come home to face Chris Bosh and David West, and your head is spinning at 18 years old. So it might not be the worst thing in the world, but you could hold those three together. You could even sign Cantor to a decent extension, and then as time goes on, make that move. It doesn't have to be the next day. Another question from Dace. Do the rights of Ante Tomic hold much trade value? I don't think a lot, but they might hold a little. For us, they may not. He's probably a third big, but we do start hearing about him a little bit more. So there's a chance that there's some value there. Not a lot, but it's another piece. Could be the one that pushes over the edge, frankly. From Jason, true or false? Noah Vonleh will put up better numbers than Aaron Gordon, but Gordon's presence will help win more games. Also, is Vonleh, especially defensively, going to be that much better than Cantor? Bosh wasn't a defender in Toronto. Vonleh is so much better defensively than Cantor. It's stunning. Okay. Vonleh's weakness to me is that I don't think he has figured out how to use his athletics to be a rim protector, but nor has Ennis. Vonleh's on the floor defense is incredible. You'll see it in the video. It's incredible. If you had Vonleh and Favors, you'd be lacking rim protection, but you'd be smashing every pick and roll, switching everything. Indiana just switched Vonleh on pick and rolls with Siaskis of Michigan and Robinson and their little point guard McIver, whatever his name was. They would just switch and leave Vonleh at 25 feet out on the middle of the floor guarding the guard ball handler, and Indiana was fine with it. Tells you a lot. From Nick Smith, what prospects do analytics guys like? Well, Kevin Pelton and I will podcast and launch that for you next week. I don't know right now, though. I've heard Joel Embiid, but we'll find out who the others are. Who's this year's Kawhi Leonard, Rajon Rondo? We'll see. Jonathan Erickson. Does the fact that Randall will only participate in a two-man workout when his competition Vonleh and Gordon did a six-man workout hurt him? His agent obviously thinks not. There's probably a reason why his agent thinks not, that's probably partially true. Would the Jazz rather see him in a six-man workout? No question. That would please them more, but I understand why he's not. But yeah, maybe a little bit, but not enough that if you really like him, you wouldn't draft him. Good question. Billy Murphy is the one thing that I learned while watching the Spurs is we need better passing from our big men. You just learned that now? Didn't you listen to me all season long? I couldn't talk about this enough this season. You have to have a big man who gets 3.5 to 4 assists a game. Why would we draft Vonleh if the man is a black hole on offense? We already have Favors and Cantor struggling with passing. Why make it 3? Legitimate question. You'd really have to feel that Vonleh could pass the basketball. Vonleh's skill set is very different than Favors and Cantor. When you watch the film, you'll see he's very different than Favors and Cantor, despite having similar size. Whether or not he complements them on the floor, I think, is a legitimate question. However, I'll throw this. I think this is really the number one discussion point we have to have for the next 6 days. He might be better than Favors and Cantor. So then the question is backs us up, certainly. Like, I understand that everyone's perception right now is we have these 5 young players. We're at this point in the progression, and we're adding on to that group. There's a chance, I know this isn't pretty, there's a chance that actually we're going backwards, and we're adding the primary piece now. Then the question is whether these 5 young guys over here complement them, not whether or not you understand what I'm saying? I'm not sure if this is coming across correctly. I'm trying to envision you driving in your car, listening to this, or at work, or on your run, or on your treadmill, or whenever you listen to this. So the concept right now is that we have Burke and Burks and Hayward and Favors and Cantor. And now how is someone going to be complimenting them? Well, what happens if these guys are better? If Marcus Smart is better than Trey Burke and going to be better than every single one of these guys, then the question is how they complement Marcus Smart. If we make the move and go get Andrew Wiggins suddenly becomes the key piece, and the question is, do they complement Andrew Wiggins? So if Vonleh might be better than Favors or Cantor, which I would tell you, I've done my draft breakdown of, I would just take him at the same spot. My draft breakdown of Favors, draft breakdown of Cantor, and draft breakdown of Vonleh. I like Vonleh better than those other two at the same age. And they're different, right? So it depends what you're weighing there. Then the question is not whether or not Vonleh complements Favors and Cantor, but whether Favors and Cantor complement Vonleh. Just a thought. Are 23 and 34 worth a 21-15 first-round pick that is top 10 protected? Targeting maybe a team without a pick in this year's draft like the Knicks or Nets who need to restock. If so, do you think we could go for a deal like that? I think 23 is or 34 in play. I can't imagine that we come to training camp in October with Quinn with we already have 6. I think Gobert should be in the conversation. Maybe Gobert compliments Vonleh, right? Then you're really kind of playing around here a little bit. Gobert should be in this group. So it's Gobert, Burke, Burks, Hayward, Favors, and Cantor. So that's your 6. I can't imagine us coming to camp with 9 players that young. Gordon, at some point, Gordon's no longer young, nor his favorites. They got to play. Stop being young. Um, so maybe you take those guys out. But I can't imagine us going to camp with 9 guys at 25 or younger. That just seems, plus all the others, right? It just seems too many. So I think those picks are in play. Uh, and I think those picks are um, very much in play. If the Jazz draft Smart, Exum, or Vonleh, where's the shooter we need? Well, it's probably at 23. C.J. Wilcox can shoot it. Oh, can Jordan Adams shoot it? Jordan Adams is interesting. He's not an elite athlete. He's just a good basketball player. Um, he's just, you get worried about that a little bit. You like elite athletes on the collegiate level because of the fact that but he's got a nice body at 6'5", 220. He's 19 out of, he shot 36% from 3. He shot 55% from 2. I'll tell you what, I'll bet you Jordan Adams peaks out. That's a big number, actually. The 2-point shooting percentage is actually a bigger number when looking at college players than you think. It tells you an awful lot. So we'll see. All right, let me jump over. I've only got a minute or two here, but let me jump over some of the questions from yesterday. DJ and PK said this morning they think the Jazz are impressed with Vonleh's workout, have him their first choice at number 5. I just don't see it. He worries me. Your thoughts? Billy, I would tell you to watch the video that's going to be posted at some point today. In fact, it is processing at YouTube as we speak. So when we're done with this, you can go to my David Locke YouTube channel and see if you can find it. What do you think of a Clint Capella as a draft and stash with 23? From Jonathan. I think that's a legitimate possibility. I don't know much about him. I think draft and stash is a real possibility, and all the players who are draft and stashable are gone except for him. So I think that's a real possibility. Vonleh seems to be the draft prospect that scouts schemingly promote in hopes their guy falls to them. Why does his potential in areas of the game but has shown takes plays off is unwilling to be great? I did not see that at all. I didn't see him take plays off at all. Not a one. So I didn't see that. The talent level's there. It's legit. Watch the video. You'll see it. Had Smart entered the draft last year, would have Smart been higher than Trey Burke on your draft board? Yes. He would have been. Who will be your next draft board? I'm going to try to do Aaron Gordon and keep myself under control and fan myself and make sure I don't get too excited. Matt Ott says, I agree Aaron Gordon should be our 5th pick. I have not said that. I just love Aaron Gordon. But I'm not sure he should be our 5th pick. I'm not sure I'd be willing to take the risk at 5. I can still love a guy from this seat and not have to take him. Remember this comment. Being a defensive program going forward is very important to who we are and what we want to be. We want to establish that foundation. I think you're right. I think those are all important, good notes. It's 8 o'clock. 30 minutes is more than I wanted to give you today because you've got a Chad Ford podcast coming up and you've got a Noah Vonleh draft video up. It's a big day at Locked On Jazz. We'll be back with you tomorrow. Part 2 of the Chad Ford podcast goes up on Thursday, and hopefully we'll have more for you as well. See you.